Are you aware that Santa Maria Produce went out of business?
No, ma'am, I did not know that.
Not long after.
No, ma'am, I wasn't aware.
They went out of business.
We're about to watch the parole hearing for a young lady who stole about $80,000 from her employer when she was just 22 years old, given a 15-year sentence for that. Now, I'll unpack all the details, which are extensive, at the end of the hearing. With that, let's jump in.
The offense that you've been charged with is theft over $25,000. You were sentenced on December the 17th of 2020 to 15 years in jail. Your parole date is September. Your first date of parole that you can get, if we grant it, will be September the 15th of 2024. Your good time date is April of 2025, and your full time will be December of 2035. And as is the way that we conduct these hearings is that each one of us on the panel has a certain number of hearings that we do most of the talking and the interview on. When we're through interviewing you, we'll have a chance to talk to people that might be for you getting parole. Then we'll have a chance to talk to people that might be against you getting parole. Then we'll have a victim, not a victim, but a statement from you as far as what you've done since you've been incarcerated and about the crime. And then we will have a chance, if there is any opposition from the district attorney's office, they will conclude the hearing, that we will vote and let you know today what's going on. Okay, having said that, I'll turn this over to Jerry Ledoux. Ms. Ledoux will do the questioning.
Good morning. How are you, Ms. McCoy?
I'm good. How are you doing this morning?
Do it well. Ms. McCoy, the crime that you committed took place in 2018, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were not sentenced until 2020, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you on bond that whole time?
Yes, ma'am.
You had bonded out, you were free until the court case.
Yes, ma'am.
If the record is correct, and I believe it is, you stole $78,000.
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do with that money? Did you have a gambling problem, a drug problem? What did you do with the money?
No, ma'am. At that point in time in my life, and I'm not making excuses for it. I made very poor decisions and poor judgments. At that time in my life, I was on so to speak, I was going through, I was just, speaking quite frankly, I was young, I was naive.
What did you spend the money on? Is the question.
On things such as bills, I spent it on makeup, things that I really didn't need, things that I thought that I needed at that time that I didn't, things to try to help my mom, just on things, some things that mattered and some things that didn't.
Okay, $78,000. That's a lot of money. So when you caught, how much money did you have left that you hadn't spent?
So I don't remember the exact amount. I don't remember the exact amount that was, but it was a lot. It was a lot, yes, ma'am.
Did you give it back to the victim, to the business?
I gave it to my attorney to give back to my victims. Yes, ma'am, I did.
How
Okay.
much? Don't have any idea how much you gave back?
I don't remember the full amount. I don't. It was a lot.
A lot. Help me out here, Laquanisha. I need it. I need it. Was it 20,000? Was it 40?
About a range, it was probably about more than half of it. It was a good chunk of it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's That's the kind of information I need. So were you ordered to pay the restitution for the rest of the amount?
When the judge gave me the sentencing, he did tell me from what I recall, it's been a long time ago, but the judge, when he sentenced me, when he said the 15-year sentence, I really kind of stopped listening after, because it really just really hit me really hard at that time, because I thought that I could get away with something, and it just, everything just hit me all at once. Yes, ma'am. It
You
did.
do not know if you are ordered to pay restitution. You don't know if you are ordered to pay restitution at this point?
Yes, ma'am. In the court documents, it said that I would be sentenced for 15 years. And I honestly don't recall if he stated for me to pay restitution or not. It's been such a long time.
Okay. So you've been in the transitional work program, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I understand your mother's disabled and you're helping your mother. Have you considered how you might pay restitution?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So when I do get out, I have a plan. When you're in here, you have nothing more to do except recall everything and try to not make the same mistakes that I did in the past to get me to where I am now. So getting out, I do have a plan when I get out. I do have a home to go back home to. I wanted to, with my work skills, I am in the work release transitional program. I currently work at the Duck's Nest, but I don't plan on staying here. I do plan on going back home in Shreveport, Louisiana with my mother. I do plan to go through the Louisiana workforce system to try to find work of employment. I also, I also know that Indeed.com also has work avenues. I have a lot of working experience and it has taught me a lot. I have cashier experience, hotel front desk experience. I'm currently working at the Duck's Nest. I have a lot of good skills that I've learned, and I've worked with a lot of really good people, and it's taught me a lot, like a lot, how to deal with different age ranges, how to adapt, how to adjust, how to just listen, because that's something I do struggle with, is just to listen and to.
Okay, well, I want you to listen just to this question. Are you aware that Santa Maria Produce went out of business?
No, ma'am, I did not know that.
Not long after.
No, ma'am, I wasn't aware.
They went out of business. I'm going to ask you something that is contained in the record that concerns me, and that is, it was noted that you forged letters of support for the pre-sentencing phase of the trial. Did you do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for owning responsibility for that. So I would like if any of the other members would like to ask any questions.
Sure. How much money have you saved up since you've been in work release? How much is in your account? You have any idea?
Saving with work release, I've tried to save up about a good amount. I try to send back family support to try to help my mom.
Sending money home to your mother?
Yes, sir. I try to send my family support homes to help with bills and to help with savings with my mom, and just try to get everything. I'm trying to do things the right way, because the way that I've done them, that's not the right way to do it. And my mom deserves so much more and so much more better than that. So I've tried to save from work release, from sending $200 home to $350, and her using certain things on bills. And I have about a good probably from being in work release this long, not knowing, how much she used for bills. So I would say probably about a good 5,000 to probably try to.
Good, you're not wasting it at the canteen. So, and that's a good thing. And I just wanted to note that she had a minimum risk and need and no write-ups. Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Okay, I'm curious about if we could just go over one more time the amount of money. There was about 78,000 stolen. Is that correct? Is that,
And like the figure amount, I believe, I'm just trying to recall, because going through it, sometimes I believe it was over more than half. So I believe that it was probably about 43 that I gave back, or around that ballpoint figure. I don't want to tell you
32.
the wrong
It was
thing.
32,000.
32. Okay. So thank you for letting me know, but it was a large amount. So yes, sir. I do apologize. I didn't know the full amount, and I didn't want to give the incorrect answer.
I have all the information here on,
okay, thank you. We weren't trying to trick you. We just didn't, I had failed to see that.
I didn't see it either.
That's all the questions I have.
I just need to ask one more time. I mean, we're talking about this, and let me tell you, you have glowing reports from the people in the institution, okay? You
Yes.
conduct yourself very honorably. You've taken advantage of a lot of great courses. There's nothing that speaks ill of you during your time incarcerated. You know what I haven't heard, Ms. LaCoy? Are you truly sorry for that decision that you made to take those people's money?
Yes, ma'am, I am, because they didn't deserve that. No one deserves what I did. No one. Not even. No one deserves that. It's no excuse. I take full accountability for everything that I've done. Everyone at Santa Maria Produce, they didn't deserve that. And going through that entire experience, it made me want to do better for the business that I work for. Now, it made me want to really just sit down and look at myself and just be accountable and be honest within myself to know the person that I was then, like the things that I know now, I wish I did know then, but I know that God had to use this opportunity to break me down in order to build me back up so that I can be a better person, so that I can learn from my mistakes, so that I can make better decisions and not go back to what I went to. And I've also learned that what I've gone through it doesn't affect what I have to become. And I am truly remorseful. They didn't deserve it. And that made me want to do better, to be around people, to rehabilitate myself and to do better. But I needed this. And I know that may sound funny, but I really needed this to sit down, to slow down, to humble myself, to really get my priorities straight and to see what was really important. And when I did, it's like, when I came here, I could only be mad at myself because I put myself in this situation. Nobody else put me in this situation. And being around, the guards and accepting authority and, really just looking myself in the mirror, this gave me the time to really see me for who I really am and to see what God really has in store for me. And I do take full accountability for it. And I have been trying to rehabilitate myself in any way possible to try to better myself, because I'm not perfect by any means. I did think back then that I knew everything, and I was young and naive. I won't make any excuses for myself, because what I did was absolutely wrong. It's no right, no way of trying to.
You sound like you've done a good wrap up, as far as I can
Okay.
tell. That
All right.
good statement.
I failed to ask before we vote. Is there any staff of Concordia there?
Yes, sir.
Staff in the with you?
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second.
Oh, that's okay. Don't.
It's okay, we don't need it.
That's all right. I just didn't want to be rude and not introduce them if they were in the room with you. But if they're not in the room, that's okay. Okay, I think we're ready to vote.
You have. He wants to speak.
Is there someone else? Oh, I'm sorry. That's my
Is
mistake.
she on?
I didn't see her.
Here she, here's the staff member. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
I'm
Could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Chief of Security. I'm Tiffany Davis, the Chief of Security here at the Women's Facility.
Okay, I just wanted to introduce you and thank you for your work and what you do. And do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
Miss McCoy, she's been a great offender. We haven't had any trouble out of her. She comes, she goes to work when she's on schedule. She have taken her classes. And I wish I had more like her, honestly.
I'm glad you don't. I mean, more people be breaking the law if you did. So
Well, I wish I had more offenders that has done what she has done and as far as trying to rehabilitate herself and get herself.
Right, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
We appreciate the work and we appreciate those remarks about Miss McCoy. And Carolyn Howard was supposed to speak. That was a neighbor, but she's not on, correct?
Oh, you can just call it name.
Okay, Miss Howard, is Carolyn Howard listening? Carolyn Howard, the neighbor. Miss McCoy's neighbor, are you listening?
Don't mute it.
Okay, we'll move on then. I'm sorry we can't hear from Miss Howard, but we're having some kind of problems, I think, from her end. So anyway, are y'all prepared to vote?
Yeah.
Okay. Just looking.
Ms. McCoy, the vote for me today is going to be to grant with some conditions. It has not been clear if restitution has been ordered. But if restitution has been ordered, then I expect you to pay the full amount of restitution in the timeline that either the judge or the probation and parole set out for you. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Because that's going to be important in my mind. And that's the biggest condition. So at this point, my vote is for you.
Okay, Ms. McCoy, my vote is the same. Let probation and parole determine the rest of the restitution. They'll give it to victims and the victim's family, and they'll set you up on a payment plan that you can afford. With that amount of restitution, a lot of times it doesn't get paid out and has to go to civil, but I do want you paying while you're on. But my vote is to grant. And you had any problems with drugs at all? I saw you took a couple classes. Did you do drugs when you were on the streets?
I did drink some alcohol. I did, because alcohol gonna be out. Yes, sir. Like with alcohol, I used it kind of like as a coping mechanism.
But let's go on and get you evaluated too, and make sure you don't have a drug problem, okay?
Okay. Yes, sir.
All right. And that's it for me. I grant you've done a good job. I hope your words are truthful, because you have proved you can't be deceitful. So
Yes, sir.
let's do it the right way this time. You're backing a lot of time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I could say deny and it wouldn't make any difference because we have 2 grant votes. So you're going to be granted parole. But I know there's a lot of people that listen to this on YouTube and on whatever. And I just want to explain something. I'm going to vote to grant also, but you are going to get out in less than a year, no matter what we said. And so I want the viewing public, those I want you to understand the state of Louisiana, even though even though Miss McCoy got a 15-year sentence, she's going to be getting out in less than a year anyway, less than 4 years after she was sentenced. So you just need to know, I just want you to know that we're just giving her a few months extra, letting her out a few months extra early. That way we can require her to do certain things like this restitution part. And so we're going to grant you parole this morning with the condition that if the court required you to do restitution, that you do it timely and that you get it done quickly, as quickly as you can. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And we appreciate how good you've done while incarcerated, and we wish you the rest of your life to be crime-free and blessed. And now conclude this. It's April the 18th at 10 o'clock in the morning from headquarters. Thank you. Wait for our next case.
Thank you.
Good, we just,
We're
if
still
they're
on.
not there, we'll close.
Okay, so I have mixed feelings on this one, and thank you, Richard, for providing it. We actually have the full court transcript that we'll go over, and maybe it will help add context because she did go to trial. It's first when I hear that a young, woman really in her early 20s is sentenced to 15 years for a first offense robbery, and really it was very simple. This was not sophisticated at all. This was not like someone who was smart and who was scheming against. She was a low-level clerk at like a grocery store, and she simply charged back from the store's credit card like into her bank account money. I mean, this was low-level stuff. But then you find out that she forged her letters of support, and we'll go through those details. And then that's why you see why they threw the book at her, and I don't blame the DA for doing that. And then when you find out that even though it's a 15-year sentence, but she can get paroled after 4, it kind of all lines up, right? Like they wanted to put the fear of God in her after she forged those documents. And really, when all of that is kind of unpacked for me, I actually think the whole thing makes a lot of sense. I actually like the idea that they gave her a sentence that would shake her to her core, put her in work release so she could be making money, although I wish that there was some type of automatic draw against that money to start paying back restitution. That to me would have seemed the most logical. I don't know, they can't legally do that. That has to be done in civil court. That can't be done, I don't understand that part. But then on the flip side, there are certain things that she said that just made my, my spidey senses kind of go off. She said she wasn't aware that that company went out of business. Now let's keep in mind the timing. A lot of companies, retail, went out of business during COVID. So I think that has to be taken with a grain of salt. But still, the idea that she's not aware of it. And then she just straight up said, I don't know how much money I had left. And but on the flip side of that, we find out that $32,000, which was like more than a third, almost, was given back. She didn't spend all of it. But the idea that she was just stating, I don't know what I had left, is that just immaturity, or was it being sneaky? But where I'm torn on that is that most would want to brag and say, hey, I had 32 grand, I gave back right away. And she didn't. So, and then there is something else that Richard found that she didn't bring into equation, which she could have. Her father murdered someone and was was locked away for doing that. And she could have done a whole sob story on how this and this and that and why she did it. She didn't do that approach either. So, it's interesting. To me, it's I'm not decided on how I feel. Love to know how you feel about it. But let's go read through this. So, a Shreveport woman convicted earlier this month of stealing $80,000 from her employer in 2018 was sentenced December 17, 2020 in Cato Parish District. She was 24 when she was sentenced to 15 years at hard labor. Now, she was employed at a local family-owned small business from March 17 to June 2018, so less or a little more than a year. In June 2018, the business received a call from its credit card processing company saying that 8 fraudulent refunds were drawn on the business account totaling $78,933.03. Further investigation showed all 8 transactions went into McCoy's bank account. So as you can see, a remarkably unsophisticated scheme here. This is no Einstein. A factor in sentencing after conviction, McCoy submitted several letters written on her behalf asking for mercy. Some of them were from family members or other acquaintances and were real, but others were purported to be written by prominent members of the community who asked for leniency. Attested to her good character, doubted whether she was really guilty. That's silly. Suggested that she was a good candidate to be a nurse, anesthesiast, and I would say no, and said she intended to be in the U.S. Air Force. The purported writers of the letters included, so these are the fake letters that she wrote. She wrote a letter by her high school principal, a high school teacher, a college professor, a past work supervisor, and a military recruiter. But when called to verify that the letters were genuine, those people said that the letters were forgeries, and they did not write letters for McCoy. The past supervisor added that she would not have been willing to write a letter on McCoy's behalf, and McCoy had been fired by her for theft. Okay, this is interesting. So her last supervisor, the supervisor that she actually forged the letter for, fired her for theft. When you lie, there are some people that I don't know. I guess like it seems sincere, but I guess like some that's what con artists are very good at. But she didn't take the easy way out. She didn't blame it a sob story on her father, and she kind of she was like sketchy on the details. I'm guessing intentionally so, but at the same time, maybe not. Again, she didn't come off as like the sharpest woman in the shed, as like a skilled, seasoned, scam artist. She just seems very unsophisticated in her of course, that type of thievery, you're not getting away with it. It makes you wonder how a small business, how that could even happen. And then it makes me wonder, like, why is the credit card processing company not, like, it seems like some other company should have been responsible, but I guess it doesn't work that way. Anyways, so let's go through the court dates. Thank you, Richard, again. So in March 2017, Santa Maria, so it's a wholesale grocery distribution company, hired McCoy as a general office clerk. So it's a wholesale distribution company. So there could be a lot of, money going through there. McCoy was responsible for assisting in office sales, which included taking customer orders and taking payments to generate order slips and invoices, in addition to general clerical tasks, including answering phones and filing paperwork. Thereafter, McCoy was also responsible for processing sales through batching credit transactions. On June 12, 2018, McCoy gave notice that she planned to terminate her employment. That same day, Charlotte Baker, an employee from Heartland Payment System, the payment processor for Santa Maria, contacted Joseph, one of the store managers of Santa Maria. She informed him that their system flagged multiple $1,000 fraudulent and unverified refunds transferred from Santa Maria's account on June 19, 2018, after Heartland confirmed that the credit card used and the account to which the money was transferred belonged to McCoy. Joseph Glorioso was fired. Okay. Joseph Glorioso fired her and contacted Sergeant Jared Woods, a detective for the Financial Crime Task Force with the Shreveport Police Department. After confirming that the credit card and bank account belonged to McCoy, Sergeant Woods interviewed McCoy a few weeks later. During the interview, McCoy presented Sergeant Woods with a cashier's check for $32,356.52 and a handwritten log she claimed detailed her work schedule and overtime hours. McCoy explained that she was overpaid for her accumulated overtime hours and wanted to return the excess payments. After further investigation with Heartland, Sergeant Woods issued an arrest warrant. And the idea that she's claiming that she doesn't know how much she gave back, I don't buy it. She would have known. She would have remembered. She made a cashier's check for 32. You don't forget those numbers. You don't forget when you hand a detective a money order. You're talking about probably the largest size check she's ever held. From her paying from her to someone else. So I think there's a lot of there was a lot of manipulation in this interview. You just don't forget that. It was one thing where maybe like she almost made it seem like she didn't know what was restitution. Maybe they took it from her account. She was dazed and confused. This is totally different. She paid it back in her cover up. Any further investigation with Heartland, Sergeant Woods issued an arrest warrant against McCoy for felony theft and violation. McCoy was subsequently charged by bill of information, arrested, and released on bond. On November 30th, 2020, the 3-day trial commenced, wherein the following witnesses testified at trial. Santa Maria owner, Baker, Sergeant Woods, Santa Maria's employees, Finally, McCoy testified on her own behalf. First, Joseph Glorioso testified, Vice President of the company, that he was responsible for daily operations of the business, including sales, purchasing, food, and safety. He stated that on March 17, McCoy was hired as a full-time employee and was initially responsible for customer relations, sales, data, input, filing, taking payments, and later batching credit card payments. Mr. Glorioso explained that when credit card payments were batched, the credit card processor, Heartland, would confirm authenticity of each credit and transaction and transfer all verified funds into Santa Maria's bank account. He stated that on June 12, 2018, he received a call from Baker's informing him that approximately 8 fraudulent transactions totaling $78,933 were funded from Santa and Maria McCoy's account. So it's even more rudimentary than I thought. I mean, it wasn't like she was taking a little bit each month for a year. She did this all in one day. I mean, and then wanted to quit that day. The whole thing's stupid, really. It's impulsive. Joseph stated that while McCoy, it's crazy they couldn't get back more money, actually. I wonder what she did with the rest of it. I mean, remember, this all happened at one point. They should have gotten all the money back instantly. Joseph stated that while McCoy, like other authorized personnel, would have access to the credit terminal where payments were taken and been privy to the money processed in Santa Maria's bank account, she would not have been promised additional money or authorized to transfer any money out of the funds to personal bank account. He testified that McCoy could not have earned that amount of money as she was only paid $10.60 an hour and paid on a biweekly basis. Josephine Glorioso, president of the company, explained that although she only worked with McCoy in the office on a few occasions, neither she nor any other employee would have promised McCoy any portion of the $78,933 refunded to her account. Yeah. I mean, yeah, she has an annual salary of $21,000 a year, and she hands the detective a $30,000+ paycheck, but she says she doesn't remember, what it was. Okay. But again, highly unsophisticated, but not the first time she stole. Then she forged the letters, also an idiotic thing to do. So, you think she's going to stay out of prison? You think that having this now I guess what would be like a 11-year sentence hanging over her head. Oh, did I forget to mention this? Wasn't it interesting how the sheriff brought up how people are watching on YouTube, and he wants everyone to understand why it is that they're letting her out early. I love that. I really feel like we're finally being recognized by Louisiana. Like, hey, we're here, we're watching. Guys, I think we should all pat ourselves on the back, because that is an identification that they acknowledge that we exist. And not only do they want to inform us and keep us aware of why they're making decisions, but hopefully them being aware that we're here will, again, keep them accountable for how they make those decisions. So I think we all owe ourselves a pat on the back. Let's do a round of applause. We've done it. It's a big milestone. And let's give them credit too for acknowledging us. As we've come a long way from them trying to shut us down to now acknowledging us, right? So we personally give tips to warehouse employees on some Saturdays as you would see fit. Tips ranging from $20 to $100. He explained that this gratuity was exclusively reserved for warehouse employees, and that he would extend it to offer this McCoy to any other office employee, regardless of how long they were employed in the company. Mr. Glucer stated that he never asked McCoy to work unrecorded hours. Okay, so basically they're just good. Let's see what she says. Let's see what she says when she testifies, because she testified. Okay, finally, McCoy testified that she was hired in 2017. She was never given a clear work schedule with respect to her duties as an office clerk. McCoy testified that she was only instructed to be flexible. She stated that she later responsible for general office duties, including answering calls, placing orders, filing, and taking payments. McCoy stated that as office staff left, she filled in for those vacancies by batching credit card transactions, printing labels for invoices, assisting with shipping and inventory, and running orders to the warehouse. McCoy stated that in order to finish her work, she had to work overtime almost every day to bring her work home with her, surpassing the allotted overtime hours management permitted. So this is basically how she convinced herself that she was due the money, right? She's like, wow, they overworked me. I'm taking the money and quitting. McCoy testified that Joseph flipped out and restricted her overtime hours. She stated that she considered quitting but continued to work because Vincent told her that because she was a good worker, he would take care of her by allowing her to work unrecorded overtime hours and depositing her pay personally. For fear that Vincent would not keep his word, McCoy stated that she kept a log of her hours, showed them to Vincent every Friday to verify that she would still pay her overtime. She testified that although she continued to work overtime, Vincent failed to deposit the payments. McCoy stated that Vincent finally became to deposit the money. You know, the whole problem with this story is that the math don't math. The math ain't mathing up. It just doesn't work that way. Even if you were getting that kind of overtime, it's just, you're not tripling your salary. The amount was accurate because he was taking care of her the rest of the year. On December 2nd, 2020, the jury unanimously found McCoy guilty as charged in a post-conviction pre-sentencing memorandum. McCoy, in support of her plea for leniency, attached 13 character letters. However, in the state sentencing memorandum, it noted that 5 of the character letters were forged, and that's the nail in the coffin for the 15-year sentence. On December 17, 2020, the sentencing hearing took place. The trial court concluded, I want to hear this. I would note that Miss McCoy has stolen before. She has defrauded before. She has already reoffended by submitting what appears to be forged letters asking for leniency, so number 1 is fulfilled. Whether the defendant needs confinement, I thought earlier before receiving the fraudulent report, pre-sentence report, that it might be some sort of mental issue, but now it shows I'm convinced that Miss McCoy has just a lifetime of trying to defraud people for money. And paragraph 3 of that section, a lesser sentence than what I'm about to impose, would depreciate the seriousness of the offense. You see that? The judge would have let her off probably pretty easy without those letters. In connection with 894, I noticed that the offender was offered or has been offered or given or received something of value for the commission of the offense. The offense resulted in a significant permanent injury or significant economic loss the Santa Maria produce. I don't think they will ever recoup the money that was stolen from them. The amount of money stolen was 3 times the threshold for the $25,000 crime. And it appears to me that Miss McCoy is persistently involved in and has gotten away with a lot of things that have led her to this time, which include the Social Security fraud, the theft of the casino. Okay. She has even more, right? Social Security fraud and the theft of the casino. She committed perjury at trial. She committed defamation by attacking Santa Maria Produce in her stress journal, and particularly attempting to make a fool out of the owners of Santa Maria Produce, which they are not. And she committed forgery in connection with their filing, which may be a crime in itself. I don't see any mitigation factors that apply to Miss McCoy. Let me say I have labored over this case. I couldn't understand it. I thought for a while that Miss McCoy was deranged or delusional. I was wrong. The defendant has grown up with and practiced deceit apparently her whole life. She abused this court and 14 jurors for 3 days. And when she couldn't fool the jury, she tried to fool me with forgery. The trial court then sentenced McCoy to 15 years of labor. Wow, what a speech. Oof. What a speech. When the judge puts it that way, I'm going with the judge. I'm going with the judge. My spidey senses are tingling. On appeal, McCoy presents 3 assignments of error, each alleging the trial committed several errors and abuses discretion, imposing 15-year sentence for the first time without proper consideration of particular facts and circumstances, resulting in unconstitutional excessive sentence. First, the defendant's criminal conduct neither caused sentence serious harm. Also, remember, she stole the money all in one shot. She should have had that money to pay them back, and she didn't. So where did it all go? I would have liked, actually, the parole board to push her a little bit harder. Now, I think they were hinting to the idea that they didn't want to really parole her, as the sheriff alluded to, but they kind of had they paroled her because she was getting out anyways on good time. So they wanted to set stipulations, but I think that their spidey senses were going off too. She was only 22 years old at the time of the offense, was committed and sole financial provider for a household in the absence the offense in question. She has no criminal history, no subsequent arrests, indictment, charges, convictions filed against her. She argues that trial was unduly influenced by unadjudicated other crimes, ex post sentencing, specifically the state alleged following McCoy. The $58,000 that the Social Security Administration determined McCoy and her mother wrongfully received through false assertions of disability. So she stole $58,000 from Social Security. The apparent unadjudicated theft that McCoy committed at the casino, leading to her firing, committing perjury at trial, committing criminal defamation by defaming the other employers, Santa Maria Produce, and other people, going through each basically. Based on these allegations, McCoy argues that the court trial, as reflected by the sentencing, was unduly influenced by the illicit acts when it stated, I would not note that Miss McCoy is stolen. I would note that Miss McCoy is stolen before. Okay. So she's basically saying, hey, I was never actually arrested or prosecuted. How can you state that? How can you say that I had stolen before because I was never arrested for it? And she notes that the claims of disability fraud are unsupported as exhibits concerning the matter were sealed and not made part of the records. I was wondering that too, right? Similarly, she argues that her termination from the theft of the former job at the casino is also unfounded. So she's basically saying all of those things, although, are stated against her, there are no convictions. So that's an interesting argument. I wonder what they say to that and what the law is around that. Then about the forgery, she says that although proffering false testimony or evidence is deplorable, her right to present the defense on her behalf is absolute, and the exercise of the right to trial was not of the abuse of the court. She argues that the trial court statements did not align with proper trial decorum expected from the object non-biased of fact. She asserted that the trial court statements indicated that considered her tendering of false documents as a direct personal insult. So basically, her argument was like the court was saying that it was a personal insult, and that it shouldn't have been. That's like that was the best you can come up with that. Not a great one. But I guess that's why there's always risk when a judge ever makes a statement, and that's why I think some judges don't make those statements as much as we all want to hear them, but it just opens up more room for appeal. Now, the defendant, while employed as a vault teller, the bank charged with 2 counts of forgery. So when the defendant, while employed at a vault teller, so this is what they're talking about, at a bank, was charged with 2 counts of forgery and 1 count of felony theft, having a value of $120,000 over the course of 4 months. On appeal, this court. Oh wait, no. Oh, they're talking about. Okay, no, they're referencing other cases. Phew, I was like, what? They're referencing other cases. I know this is kind of a long unpacking, but I actually find it quite interesting. I don't know if you do too. So this is interesting. So finally, McCoy argues that the trial court displayed impermissible animus during sentencing. This court acknowledges, so this is the court that's overlooking the appeal. So the court overlooking the appeal acknowledges that while the trial court statements that McCoy abused the court and the 14 jurors for 3 days may have been poorly worded, we nevertheless find that the trial court statements was directed towards McCoy's actions rather than her personally. Isn't that interesting? Like judges, I guess, again, that's why judges are careful, especially in major cases, from making a statement. As much as the world really wants to hear something from the judge, I think we need it therapeutically. This could be why they don't. They just don't want to offer any more ammunition for an appeal, especially for a big case. Although this is a nonviolent offense, McCoy is a first-time offender. We find that given the unique circumstances surrounding this case, the trial court did not abuse its discretion in sentencing McCoy. Sentence is not constitutionally excessive and was well supported for the record. Affirmed, which it should be. I mean, I think I'll give my personal opinion. Quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, probably a duck, right? And there's a history and a track record here, and I didn't like the hearing. I thought it was very so I'd still be nervous. I do like the 15-year sentence. I do like that she's getting out after, whatever, 4 years. I don't, for these type of crimes, it's, you're not risking it a child. She's back in all this time. People are going to be aware of her record, for her to go and she's not that sophisticated in her crime. So if she's going to go and do something fraudulent and wrong, she's going to get caught and she's going to get locked up for a much longer time. And hopefully she doesn't. Hopefully she figures out, she's still very young, and hopefully she figures out hopefully she is genuine, but love to hear your thoughts. And with that, I'll let you go.